Hey, everybody, Kerry Schafer, Kerry Anne King, Kerry all the time over here. And I am going to introduce everybody else in just a moment. I am so super excited that these amazing magical women were available at a moment's notice to come and do this panel with me. I am not a planner, so it came to be about 2 days ago, and I was like, oh, Women's Fiction Day. I'm not doing anything. And then I thought, well, I should do something. And then I thought, what would I do? And then I thought maybe a panel would be fun, and it would be fun to do something about magic and women's fiction. And I know some people. So I invited all of these lovely ladies to join me, and here they are. And I'm going to go around and let them all introduce themselves to you. Thanks for being here, by the way. If you are popping in, please do share comments, ask us questions. We're here to interact and have fun with you today. It's a celebration day. So I'm just going to go in order. So first up, we have Miss Willa Reese. Say hi, Willa.
Hi. I'm Willa Reese. I'm Willa Reese, and I'm one of the 2021 new voices for Orbit Publishing with my debut fantasy.
Nice. Oh, and I know you have a book, so let's see it right now. I want to see the cover. Yeah, Wildwood Whispers. That's beautiful. And we'll come back and talk about it a little bit more. And Willa will also talk about, hey, actually play a game. Guess our real names. If you're listening, and there are some of us who are maybe not who we say we are, and you know who we are, then go ahead and share that. So moving on, we have Maddie Dawson. Say hi,
Maddie. Hello, hi.
And it's really hot where Maddie is, and we're really sorry about that. So we're sorry.
And it's about to thunderstorm too, so adding to a little magic.
Okay, yeah, thunderstorms are magic, totally. So Maddie, I know you have more than one magical book, but which one do you have to show us today?
Well, I brought two.
Okay, show them both.
This was my first magic book. Let's see if I can get it to be on the thing.
There, good job.
Beginners. And then I have a book coming out in August that actually has magic in the title, so I figured I better talk about that one. The Magic of Found Objects. Loved it.
That's such a great title. You know what else is really awesome, you guys? You have to think about this. When you put all those words together and you have an acronym, it is MOFO. And this particular Kerry got a huge kick out of that. And
when I was titling the book, I thought of that. And I thought, oh, I hope they let me keep this title, because you know how they always write, whenever they write to you, they always have just, you know, that's what they call your book. And you look at those letters together and they never make any sense. And I thought, MOFO, this is going to be it.
I cracked up.
It makes me so happy every single time.
It's got to be a success with a name like that, right? It's like, oh, because I didn't show mine, so I'm going to real quick. So mine is Other People's Things, and I like, yes, opt. So I'm like, opt in. I'm like, opt in, buy the book.
There you go.
There you go. It's a good option. Betty says hot here too. Maddie, hot with thunder rumbling. And we have a couple, somebody else said it's going to rain where they are. It's going around, but not where I am. We need rain here. Send it our way, please.
You send the cool air. I'll send the rain back to you.
Please. Please. We have the Viking is stressing about the drought, which there actually is one, sadly, going on. Barbara, my friend, introduce yourself a little bit. Show us your book.
Barbara Davis, and I also have two. First one is The Last of the Moon Girls. I can't.
The other way.
If I go this way, it goes this way on the computer.
I know, it's backwards.
Anyway, Last of the Moon Girls. And then the one that is coming out in October, on October 1st is, and speaking of titles that you're not sure they're going to let you keep, here it is, The Keeper of Happy Endings, which of course has its own weird connotation. and I've gotten a little weird followers. I'm like, no, it's not about that.
When Barbara told me the title of the book, and I love it, it's a fabulous title, but I did say, you might get some erotica readers buying in, having expectations.
I don't know if they were readers, but they were all about the erotica thing. I was like, no, you have the wrong girl.
That's hilarious. And Kim, welcome to our little party.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Kim Neville. I have a book, just one. This is my debut novel. It's called The Memory Collectors. It
Look
came
at
out
that title.
Which I'm reading right now and loving.
I love it. I love that cover.
Thank you. It doesn't have a cool acronym,
It's right here.
but
Don't believe me. I have it too.
oh, my goodness! How exciting!
Fan girl.
Yay! It came out in March. There we go. I love, actually, there's 3 of us in this group that have books that are somewhat around magic and objects, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, right. Because other people's things, although it has no magical words in the cover, does kind of have magical elements also, which is, the one of the next fun things we're going to get to here in a minute. So actually, I'm going to start with Willa on this one, because I know that you were writing something other. And you have another name, which we're not necessarily going to tell people, but you've been writing something different. So this is your first women's fiction, and you've chosen to do women's fiction with magical elements. So tell us what you were, about your other brand.
Well, I wrote paranormal romance for years. And, that has a lot of magic and world building, a lot of similarities. And, also, even though it was romance, it had a lot of women's empowerment in it. And so it just sort of naturally led to the focus on the journey of the lead character rather than the romance. The Wildwood Whispers has a strong secondary romance in it, but it's definitely about Mel's her journey to strength and empowerment and recovery. And so it was sort of a natural move for me to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I love hearing and understanding how people came to doing this. Like for me, my first writing books were, as Kerry Schafer, were fantasy. And then I started writing women's fiction, and there was no fantasy in it, and I missed it. And so I always had these 2 separate identities. And now I finally feel like when I can pull in the magic that I get to really be me. So I get to write stories.
So hard. It's so hard for me to write just ordinary. It's just not the way my mind doesn't work that way. My mind just doesn't work that way.
Right. Well, and I think I'm not the only one, because Maddie, your original books didn't necessarily have magic in, right?
They really didn't. They were all straight women's fiction, sort of finding the family that you belong to and those kinds of things. They were a lot about divorce and mother-daughter stuff and all of that. And then with Matchmaking for Beginners, I just decided, and it was almost like I didn't think that it was going to be a book that would be any good. I just wanted to write it so badly. It was like one of those things. It was so different from what I'd been writing before. And it was almost like meeting it in secret. I would just sneak off and write it, and all these things were happening in the book. And I thought, well, they probably aren't going to like this, but it's what I'm writing because it's all that's coming to me. And you know how that is. I mean, there's a little bit of magic in that anyway, right? Who shows up and says, I want to be in your book,
Yeah.
So the characters who showed up were telling me this, magical kind of story. And I just kept writing it, and then sent it to my editor, and she loved it. So,
right, and then so did your readers. So that book really took off,
and most successful book actually. And I thought, And then when I would read the reviews, which are, it's always tricky, isn't it? You go online and read the reviews. You got to be fortified. But it was people would say, oh, this is what I need right now, is to have a little escape and magic. And I thought, okay. So it was really kind of an interesting thing to do. And so then I kind of kept up that thread a little bit, in the books.
A lot. You kept up the thread a lot, because the second book was a sequel. So we should mention that also.
I didn't even talk about that one.
The Happy Catastrophe.
A Happy Catastrophe came out after that, and it's a sequel to Matchmaking for Beginners. Yeah. And then this one is the next one, which is
right.
Yeah.
And it's all. I love that you had little clandestine romance sneak away with your book.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love it. And then Barbara, you also your other books had a little sort of some kind of a little bit of what we call woo-woo in it. Some of them.
I kind of don't really know what I want to be when I grow up. I do, but I didn't when I started, and I was honestly to goodness. I started writing Southern fiction, and I had a very grounded in Southern traditions and stuff. And you kind of don't always step out into the magic thing without getting slapped down a little bit, because it's against what some people believe. So I was really concerned about how it would be received when I added some of that magic. So I tiptoed up to the line in a couple of the books, just right up to the line, didn't get slapped. So when I got the idea for Moon Girl, I thought, I'm just going to go for it, because I was so excited to finally write a book that I could just feel like was what I really wanted to write about, and add the strength of women's legacy and family, and add that in with the magic. Then I told my husband, I said, I'm just going to write it, because I feel like this is a book that women need to read right now and be reminded that we hold the power. We carry the torch in the families, and people forget that. And I just want to remind women who right now are a little wonky with what's going on in the world that, we actually step into your power and claim your power. So I just winged it, and I didn't know, what my editor was. They loved it. So, and it's been well received. So
very, very well received.
Yeah.
It continues. I'm stuck with the magic, but now I'm adding some historical in there with the magic. The next two.
Yeah. The next one that is coming out. When's the new one coming out? October. Yeah.
And and Maddie, you're on the way to your house, like as of yesterday. So.
Yeah, lots of really, I love the magic and the strong characters. Again, continuation of really strong women and legacy being, that's a theme for you. I see that.
The mother-daughter, working through the mother-daughter. How much do you want to keep of that? How much do you want to step out on your own, and kind of finding a balance between the family thing and being your own woman.
Right. I love it. And what you said about getting to write the book, that you just really, I was like that with other people's things. As a matter of fact, this was so funny. Maddie knows this story. I was trying to decide what I was going to write, and I actually sat down with my journal open, and I said, okay, I wrote at the top of the page, auditioning for new story ideas. And I was like, okay, come to me. So I wrote down 1, I wrote down 2, and I wrote down number 3. And I said, that's it. And I started writing, and I said, I hope they like it, because I'm writing it. Like whether they, if they're not in, that's too bad, because I get to bring all of the things that I love, which is strong women, mystery, magic, a little romance, bring it all into one place and really be me, instead of Kerry Schafer over here and Kerry Anne King over here. I get to, so I'm excited about this book. It was super fun to write.
It was super fun to read.
Yay! I like to hear that.
And then her blurb, like the day her blurb went up on Amazon, I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, if I have to read this book now, I cannot wait. Just the whole idea, the whole premise of it was just so fresh, really, really fresh. And it's hard to come up with something that no one's done before. And She did it, and Maddie, of course, with yours.
Well, it came from out there, wherever there is, and I think if you were to read Kim's book, you would discover that she also has done something new.
I am reading it different right now, and absolutely loving how Harriet and Ev are wary of one another, but kind of helping one another grow. I love that dynamic. That's distrust, and yet I know I need this person.
So, Kim, question for you. Did you know that you were going to be writing women's fiction, or did you think you were in an entirely different genre?
I did. I actually thought I was writing a fantasy book, like just a straight fantasy, contemporary fantasy. And it wasn't until I sold the book and I was talking to my editor that she was like, oh, I really think we can position this as women's fiction. And I was like, what's that? I didn't even really know.
None of us know. None of us know.
We still don't know. I didn't know then, and I'm not sure.
Not sure.
They made it up, right?
The line keeps moving.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. I'm glad I'm not alone. But when I started to look at some of the titles, the comp titles that she was talking about, I was like, oh yeah, this is totally the kind of stuff that I would like to read. And a lot of authors that I'd never even heard of. So it was really kind of a blessing to, suddenly find myself in this new world, because I have a lot of fantasy writing friends and I read a lot of fantasy. So this was like kind of a new world for me. And now I have like all these new books to read, which is always like a great thing.
It is a great thing. Have you all noticed? Because I'm really excited about this. Like when I first came into women's fiction, I was not finding women's fiction books that had magic in them, really. And now there are more and more out there all the time. So, I am super excited about that. That makes me really happy. So I'm delighted to have encountered all of you. I'm waiting for Willa, by the way. I need to read your book. So when you have a copy.
Follow the trail of comp titles. I follow the trail of comp titles to find the women's fiction with magical elements. I'm like, oh, okay, if I like her, then I'll like this. And so I just follow the trail of comp titles.
Ooh, Betty says she just read the synopsis of Kim's new book. It sounds really good. Kim, I don't think tell us about, a little bit about the new book.
Oh, sure. So The Memory Collectors is a book about two women with a shared gift, and the gift is that they can sense the emotions and memories that are left behind on objects by previous owners. And these are two very different women, one younger, one older. One of them sees their gift as a curse and something to be avoided, and the other sees it as this like great joy in her life. And they meet, they clash, they learn from each other, they grow, and they sort of come into their own power in various ways. So that's basically what it's about.
Right, and it's super. It gets a little dark. But that's okay because, well, I do that too. I don't know about you all. I keep thinking I'm going to be into this book and it's going to be kind of light and fun, like the one I'm writing right now. And then the characters finally decide to tell me that we're really, really dealing with something that's really pretty, dark.
Yeah.
So Betty, hang on a second. Betty says, I just received the sequel to The Golem and the Genie. I don't know about this book. Do any of you know about it? Those of us that are here talking? The Golem and the Genie?
I know the title. It's one of those books that I've looked at and almost, but not gotten.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, Betty, you're going to have to let us know how it is. Maybe we should define women's fiction.
When I was writing Wildwood Whispers, I kept thinking, is cozy, talking about writing something dark, I kept thinking, is cozy gothic a thing? I think I'm writing a cozy gothic.
Well, that sounds delightful.
There's such a warmth from the herbal healing and the community and the found family. There's such a warmth from that, but there's darkness too, because there's villains and people who don't like strong women. I think It was very much a product of the last couple of years.
Amen.
What we've been going through.
Absolutely.
That's where Moon Girls came from. Just
yeah.
Women just women just needed to be have a big, like
Right.
magical emotional hug, and that's
Exactly.
nothing can stop me from reading Mean Girls because of that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
that's the part I didn't want to say. That's why I went off by myself. You know, it was just like, I can't, everyone's so mad. The world feels like it's going to pieces. That was even before the pandemic came.
Yeah.
So it was
Mhm,
just like,
mhm.
as a reaction, this was the kind of thing that I wanted to write. And you were talking about the Southern fiction and all, and you can't hear it in my voice because I've lived up here for a long time.
I just did when
from
you
the
said and all.
When I said what?
I just did when you said and all.
Yeah.
No,
I was raised in the South, and you know how so many Southern women are a little bit witchy, you know, and I had
more than I ever realized, and I think more than until very recently they were willing to like
exactly. So I had all these grandmothers.
Everybody's got a grandma that knew when it was going to do.
Knew how to do stuff. You know, my grandmother could get rid of warts on strangers, even, you know, and transfer them to other people. And she was just this, and she didn't give a thought about it. You know, she was just the thing that she could do. It wasn't like up for discussion or up for question. And so that's the voice that kind of came to me, and it felt like a real Southern kind of thing. So I always have some of my characters from the South because that's what I know. You know, that's where.
Yeah. See,
when
Northern.
my mother read Wildwood Whispers, she was like, "You're finally writing what you know."
Oh my goodness!
You know,
that's great. Yeah.
Our heritage. I live in the Virginia mountains, and it's just. It is definitely a part of my heritage. Everything in the book.
It's a great part of our heritage too, isn't it?
Okay, wait 1 minute. One minute. Are all four of you all Southern? No.
No, I'm in Canada.
That's right. I forgot. Me and Kim, we're the Northern girls.
Yeah. Well, I was born in New Jersey and then raised in the South, so I'm a mutt. I'm a hybrid. But I have
the opposite. Yeah.
I have heavy, and now I'm back. And now I'm back in New Hampshire, and now I'm going back to Florida. So it's crazy.
Bless your heart.
I had this, good boy. I'm bracing myself to deal with it. I had this Southern Baptist upbringing. This mother who, this very, Bible, and we were in church 6 days out of 7, and all of a sudden I start talking to her about magic and the force, and she starts freaking out that maybe I need an exorcism or something. But now I've brought her around. But initially she was a little freaked out that I was straying from my upbringing, and maybe we needed to go talk to someone. And she's good.
There's a little piece of me that is a little tiny bit relieved that my mother made the transition to the other side before my magical books started coming out, because she would not be down with this at all. She, no, my roots were no fantasy. I discovered, I didn't even, C.S. Lewis I started reading when I was 19. It's like, and I was immediately in. My mother, no, she would not have been happy with this at all. Kim, what about your influence? Since you're not a Southern girl?
Yeah, I mean, my parents are both very atheist, grounded in reality type people. So I don't know where the fantasy came from. It just, as soon as I started writing, things came out weird from the very beginning. I blame when I was 7 years old, my grandmother gave me a copy of Grimm's fairy tales, like one of those big brick of a book, and I read it like in order, every single one, and I was like, they're all grisly and kind of dark. And I loved them. I thought they were really age inappropriate, and I was totally fascinated. And I think like that was from that moment I went down this path of being interested in anything with ghosts and fairies and magic, and my parents are not that at all. My mom is strictly murder mysteries, and my dad is historical fiction, and they don't really go outside of their little boxes. Yeah, so I don't know.
What did they think of the book when they read it?
They both loved it, and I was super surprised that they even read it. I expected them to buy a copy and put it on their shelf and show it off to their friends, but I didn't think they would read it, and they both did, and they both actually really loved it. So that was kind of neat. Yeah, it was nice.
I'm always fascinated by people that only read, certain genres, because and this might be a product of being very poor when I was small. I read whatever was there to read because I just had to read. And so I just read everything. So I'm always interested when people, stick to one genre.
Yeah, I guess if you know what you like.
Yeah. Well, I'm a moody reader. I'm a really moody reader.
Yeah, I like a lot of different things.
Yeah,
so
Yeah, well, okay. So what genres does everybody love? I'll start this off. So fantasy, really, honestly, my first love. When I fell into, before that I read everything I could get my hands on, but then I found fantasy. When I read Tolkien, it was a life-changing event for me. I was just gone for a week and never been the same. I obviously love women's fiction, family drama. I love mysteries. What else do I really, really love? Historical, not so much. I will read it sometimes, but it's got to be really character driven. I don't like it because I know what happened. Kinda, it's like, especially when they're about somebody that is a historical figure. I'm like, I already know what happened to that person. I don't want to read it again. Those are mysteries, thrillers. Those are my things that I just absolutely adore. When I was younger, Dickens, I was very, very I read a lot of Dickens when I was young because my mother, it was allowed because it was old. So that was one reason.
It's got to be good if it's old. It's got to be.
I read through all of the Dickens in like 7th, 8th grade. He was my hero. So anyway, Willa, what about you? What are your favorite genres?
I love historical mystery. And not about real historical figures. I like, I think I like small fiction where you're following, especially a woman through her daily life. And but I especially love split timelines, and that's what I write in Wildwood Whispers, where you have past events and present events. You have 2 different timelines. And so just how you can learn from the past and figuring out the mysteries of what went on before and how they impact you now. I love books like that. And this is the first time I've ever written one. And the second book is going to have an even stronger historical mystery thread. And I just love writing it, and I love reading that. Yeah. So definitely historical mysteries are my that's my pleasure. Yeah.
I like historical mysteries too. They're pretty awesome. So I get into those. Okay, Miss Maddie, what do you love to read?
I really love to read character-driven novels. The plot is so secondary to me. I don't even care if there's a plot, which was a problem when I first started writing. I would be like, you need something to happen.
It has to happen now.
People can't just ride around in the car talking.
Why not?
Talking about their feelings.
And I remember she said, all those things your character's thinking, she needs to say those out loud, and then people would react, and then that becomes, oh, okay. So, so character-driven novels. I really love literary fiction for that reason, because so much of the time that's more character-driven. I've never been able to read fantasy. I forget to pick up the book. It's really weird. I like reality, believe it or not, even though I'm hiding in my room from it. And I do like historical books, and mysteries are also fun, and I love short stories, and I really love humorous fiction, but it has to be done just right, because it can get silly. I don't want it to be silly. I like the laughs to be really earned and the emotion to be really earned, you know. So that's basically what I read.
That's fascinating. We have to talk later, you and me, about this fantasy
Get the
thing.
reading.
Tolkien, I couldn't even, you know, I start reading it and just forget that I had a book going. It was so
Oh my
weird.
goodness.
It just
Okay.
doesn't.
Well, Tolkien's not really character driven, but I could find you some character driven fantasy. But we need to talk. Okay. So
right.
Barbara, what are your favorite genre things?
Well, I cut my teeth on historical because, especially American history. I love American history. So I always thought that that's what I would write, and somehow my first novel turned into a contemporary women's fiction novel. I don't know how it happened, but again, like Willa said, it was dual timeline. So there was and there was a socially driven issue that ran through both threads of the book. And so I've been moving more and more toward the historical. So I periodically I'll pick up a historical to read. I read women's fiction. And then a friend of mine, I was in a writer's group back even before I was published. I was in a writer's group and I said, I need something new to read. Somebody tell me what you're reading that I need to read. And a friend of mine said, you need to read the Game of Thrones books. And I'm like, oh, kill me now. He said, I'm telling you, just read it for the prose and the world building. And I said, okay, I will read one. And I love fat books. So that was what pushed me over the top. It's like a nice, big, meaty read. And I fell in love with that whole series. Outlander, big, thick, meaty sagas that with world building and history. So I like a book that I can like really disappear into, but that there's relevance for today. Like Willa was saying, the past informing the present.
Yeah.
We can look back at and say, here's where we screwed up. Let's not do that again. Whether it's on a personal level, social level, political level, it just all repeats if we're not careful. So I like books that have that thread that run through them, the past and the present.
Yeah. Willa, you were trying to say something.
I love secrets. I love secrets woven in, like secrets from the past. If your book has secrets in it, I want to read it.
All my books have secrets.
Yeah.
Me too.
I love secrets, so that's what I write.
It's compelling. It's compelling. You want them to figure it out. I love secrets.
Yeah. Oh, Maddie, by the way, unfortunately, StreamYard isn't showing us people's names today, but somebody, Facebook user, doesn't like fantasy either. So you have company. And Barbara, somebody's here says, hi, Barbara. And I'm sure that you would love to say hi back.
Whoever you are, you can
whoever you are.
Who I'm talking to.
So, Kim, what about you? I think you kind of already... Well, you talked about what your parents like to read, but you didn't really tell us about what you like to read.
Well, I'm with Maddie. I actually read a lot of literary fiction, and mostly like anything that's got a good character arc. That's where I'm happy. I also read fantasy. I read mysteries, and sometimes I read horror. Nothing too gory, but anything that's sort of like creepy ghost stories. I still have since I was a kid.
I love that. I read a lot of those. Yes, yes, I love those. Matthew Cottom. I love.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I don't like to read creepy books, but as Kerry Schafer, I write some that apparently are. I don't know what that's all about, but the anonymous person is Elizabeth Silver's Reviews. Hi,
Elizabeth.
Hey, honey. We're happy to see you. So,
Creepy and cozy.
Creepy and cozy.
Yeah.
But I think
that's a great combination.
Becoming a thing. I just read it called Parting the Veil, which I would consider like a cozy gothic. It's mid 19th century, and she inherits a place, and there's ghosts and mystery, and it's got the feel. I think it comes out in June. It's called Parting the Veil, and
I'm writing it down.
It was really a different kind of book for me that I haven't read in a very long time. And I just found myself racing through it because it was just so refreshing to have that new, old. It was like sitting down with an old friend. I'm like, oh, I remember books like this.
Right.
You know, what we're saying about thick books, I so agree. There's nothing better. I remember, has anybody read that book, The Mists of Avalon?
Oh, yes. I still have a copy.
So I bought that before we left on vacation. We were going to the Cape. And I don't remember the Cape. You know, I was just, from the moment I started that book, I just walked around holding it, you know, and reading it the whole time. And I love that. I wish I could write that kind of book. I don't know how to. My plots take place usually within 1 year, you know, but I'd love to be able to write one that goes for
the epic,
epic thing.
Yeah.
It must be so fun to do.
Well, I just wrote a book that spans 40 years, and it's the hardest book I've ever written.
Really?
Yeah, because
of that?
And it's dual timeline. So I had to weave 40 years of history in with the current plot line. So I don't recommend it unless you're really want your brain to cramp up.
That's right.
Yeah. So Betty, now I'm really fascinated by this, so we'll have to talk later. Betty says, Whisper Me This was creepy, and Whisper Me This was a book that I wrote, and I don't know where the creepy would come in. I'm really fascinated to know that, actually. So tell me later. We'll have a chat. I'm trying really hard to think. I read this book that I absolutely loved by somebody that I really like, and I can't for the life of me remember either her name or the name of the book right now, and that's really bothering me because it's another cozy gothic mystery kind of thing that you all would love. And I was thinking of her as we were sitting here talking. It's like, oh, I should have tracked her down and invited her, and I didn't. It has the word dreams in it, and it's Victorian, and it has somebody with a photographer who takes pictures of dead people. Ooh. You know how they did in Victorian times, but don't get into them.
That's creepy.
It is creepy, but
they would dress them and pose them with live family members.
Yes, I know. Elizabeth's wondering, here's why you're anonymous. There's a way to be able to accept that StreamYard can show who you are. There should be a link maybe at the top of the feed that you can click and put your name in there. Otherwise, it will not show us because we're broadcasting into groups, several different groups, and your groups might be private, and so it won't share who you are. Look, somebody said, and we want to know who you are. You are all magical.
Oh, we do want to know who you are.
And this is the time where I bring this out. Okay, here we go.
And the magic orb.
My magic wand. It's an actual wand. I actually remembered, I was thinking that the Viking bought this for me when I started writing books, but actually he gave it to me when I started my counseling practice. I'd forgotten that. He thought that perhaps when I had people who were very troubled with their lives that I could just bring out the magic wand and fix everything. And actually did, by the way, with clients with whom I had a really good rapport, I would have it. And whenever they got into that wishing for things that, wasn't helpful, I would bring out the wand and then we would laugh. So it was great.
Come back.
But I still have it. So I think that we should take these last few minutes to everybody just talk a little bit about one of your books. Let's just pick one for those of us who have more than one so that our readers know what we're up to. Just a brief, I'm going to talk about other people's things. And let's say what makes it women's fiction and where the magic comes in. So other people's things is women's fiction because the main character really doesn't know who she is or what she wants in life, and things have not gone well for her. So she's at a dead end, turning 30, a little younger than some of my main characters, and really facing possible life in prison because she can't get her life under control. She's about facing a divorce. She's on the outs with her family. She has all of these relationships that are really in a mess. So the women's fiction part is that it's a strong woman who's trying to figure out who she is and create a life for herself and her growth arc. What makes it magic is that her big problem, Nicole's biggest problem, is that she has to move things. Like, she has to move things. She sees an object and it doesn't belong where it is, and she moves it, but the objects don't belong to her. That's it's called other people's things. So when you're going around moving things that belong to other people and putting them where you think they belong, you sometimes get theft charges, and it causes trouble with your relationships. So Nicole has to not only figure out how to make peace with some people and have a life, but how to make peace with what she thinks is a curse and maybe is actually a gift. So that's the story in the book, and that's why it's women's fiction and magic. So Willa, tell us a little bit about yours.
Okay. So my book is the story of a young woman, loosely based on Jessica Jones. I don't know if you're familiar with Jessica Jones, but
who is
it's sort
she?
of
So tell us.
Jessica Jones is a comic book character.
Okay.
Kim, do you know Jessica Jones? I was thinking, since you like fantasy, you might know Jessica. Jessica Jones.
Oh yeah.
So she's a troubled comic book character. But anyway, so in my book, a troubled young woman travels to the mountains to bury her best friend, and she discovers an eccentric community of new friends and old enemies. But she also discovers a mystical garden that challenges everything she thinks she knows about survival. Because she has been really disconnected most of her life, except for this one friend. And so when she loses that friend, she's unmoored. And it's a found family story. It's an empowerment story. And she learns to embrace connection and to embrace this eccentric community, which I enjoyed writing so much because I love artists and creatives. And especially in rural mountain communities, you have these pockets of quirky, artistic people who save you every day from the more backward thinking. And so it was just really wonderful to take this feeling that I had and translate it into a fantasy story where they're actually magic. Because they feel magic to me.
You had me at two things. Either one of them would have done it. The quirky community and the mystical garden. And then you're going to put those two things together. And show us the book again in the title, because we all have short memories. Yeah. So Wildwood Whispers by Willa Reese. So remember that. It's beautiful. It's available for pre-order, correct, Willa?
Yes, it comes out August 17th.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I need to talk to you about getting a review copy or something. Maddie, your turn. Tell us about Mofo.
I'm going to talk about Mofo. Mofo is the story of Franzi Linnell. And she is a young woman who's been divorced, and she works doing PR for a publishing company in New York, although she's from New Hampshire. And the interesting thing about her is that she was conceived at Woodstock. And she was the product of a quick liaison between a farmer's son who's 18, drove to Woodstock, the summer after he graduates from high school, total innocent, and meets this flamboyant, artistic hippie woman. The mud and the music and all of it just blows his mind. She gets pregnant with twins. He stays and marries her, and leaving his girlfriend back home just high and dry. So the marriage lasts for a little while, but then doesn't work out. And he marries the old girlfriend. And so Franzi is always torn between this magical hippie mom that's her mother, and the stepmother who is very practical and loving. And Franzi loves both of them, but they constantly are at war in her head, you know, and she reaches a crossroads in her life where she has to decide whether to marry her old best friend who just says, hey, we're not in love, and that's why it's going to be great because we won't break each other's hearts. We're just going to have this look at everybody that fell in love, how messed up they all are and their marriages are. Let's just do this the way, you know, it'll be fun. We'll raise kids together. We'll always be each other's best friend. And so she goes through life trying to decide if that's the thing she wants to do, or does she listen to the stepmother's view of herself, or does she listen to her mother's view of herself, or is there some way she comes to her own kind of thing? And it's called The Magic of Found Objects because her mother would pick up, she's an artist, and she would just pick up objects and make art out of them. And Franzi always was picking up the objects with her. Thank you, Elizabeth.
It's so good. I just loved it.
It's well, I love, Maddie, that, you know, what you love in your writing, in reading books is what you do, which is that fun character, quirky characters with the humor built into the story. And yeah, so I would read along with your characters all day. They can talk in the car. That's okay.
Thank you. They go to the dentist, they wash the dishes.
Whatever. They can hang out with me. Okay, Barbara. You should talk about your new one.
Okay. The new one is The Keeper of Happy Endings, and it has nothing to do with massage parlors.
Show us the cover again.
Get that in there. Okay. Bam.
No massage. Closer to the screen. I can't see it.
I'm such a spaz. There. Can you see it?
There we go. Yay!
There you go. Beautiful.
So it's a dual timeline, and it begins when with a young woman. She's just at the end of her tether. Her fiance is a pediatrician with Doctors Without Borders, and he has gone to Sudan to vaccinate children, and he gets kidnapped. And at the start of the book, he's been gone about 5 months, no word, no one knows where he is, no ransom, and she's just lost. And before he left, she was ready to begin to open her own gallery, an art gallery for artists. We have this artist thing going on.
Yeah, lots of art. Yeah.
Who no one's ever heard of. And the name of the gallery was going to be called Unheard of. And when he goes missing, she just like folds up her tent and gives up on life. And little by little, her life becomes smaller and smaller. She doesn't go out. She stops calling her friends. She withdraws from her mother. And she comes from this very wealthy family, and her mother doesn't understand why she just doesn't move on with her life. And one day she's downtown in Boston, and she sees an old row house, a Victorian row house that's empty. And she thinks, that's the place. That's the place I was meant to open the gallery. If things had gone as they were meant to, my gallery would be in there now. Well, it sits with her, and finally she decides, I'm just going to do it. Something's calling to me to do it. So she rents this gallery, and the woman that owns the gallery won't come to any of the meetings. She's a recluse. She doesn't come out. She doesn't go eat out. She doesn't have guests. Her lawyer handles the whole thing. The first day she takes possession of the property, she goes in and she accidentally stumbles onto a box that's got an old wedding dress and a man's shaving kit and the packet of old letters that are in French. And she can't figure out what this is, but on the box, it has Madame Roussel, Paris, France. So she knows it's from the woman who used to own this shop. She tracks down the woman, meets the woman, and as they develop this very reluctant friendship, it becomes obvious that these two women were supposed to meet. Their lives mirror in very unique ways. This woman lost a fiance in World War II. He just vanished. And it's been 40 years, and he's died without her ever knowing what became of her. And the main character of the story, Rory, believes that the two of them were supposed to meet. Where the magic comes in is this woman, Celine Roussel, who used to own this bridal shop in Boston. Before she left Paris, her family, for like 4 generations back, owned a very tiny, exclusive, by appointment, by referral only bridal shop where you could go pay a lot of money for a handmade dress that would guarantee you a happy ending. There's an enchantment that is actually sewn into all of these dresses. So that's what she's famous for. And she's got all these letters. All the letters that are in this box are letters written from brides who's had happy endings because of her dresses. And here's this keeper of happy endings who couldn't make her own happy ending happen. And Rory is convinced that if she figures out what went wrong with this woman's story, she can maybe fix her own story and she won't end up like this sad recluse of a woman. So this friendship develops between them, and they start realizing this can't be by accident. There has to be a reason we were brought together. And it's the two of them figuring out what that reason is. And meanwhile, you're weaving back and forth through Celine's harrowing story when the Germans come and invade Paris, and how she gets out, and
both of the romances and the mother-daughter relationships.
Mother-daughter.
There's a lot going on in this book.
Yeah, I can't write a book with just one thing happening. I get bored.
Yeah.
I'm going to direct the Mafia into the next one or something. I'm running out of new threads. So that's the Keeper of Happy Ending.
That's awesome. Thank you, Barbara. And Kim, tell us a little bit more about your book. I know you told us a little bit about the characters, but what's the story and what makes it women's fiction and what's the magic?
Okay, sure. Barbara, I want to read that book. That sounds just lovely.
I can see.
So, all right. So The Memory Collectors, it's, I see your problem.
Yeah, you can see it. You're good.
It's about female empowerment. It's about facing the secrets of your past. It's about women helping each other and helping to heal each other's traumas. So I guess that's what makes it women's fiction. The magic part is, they have basically like psychic empathic powers that they can use to read objects, and over time through the book those powers develop and get more intense and hence a little bit darker. So
the objects that they read in this book, it's like kind of objects give off energy, and these women are sensitive to that. And so an object might give off good energy, or the energy might, this is where we bend a little bit towards that horror-ish kind of stuff that you like. Those objects may have a negative, very strong, powerful aura that might impact the way that you behave, possibly.
And Ev is already dealing with her own kind of horrific tragedy, her own trauma that she's trying to ignore, shut out, and the forces all around her are like surrounding her, making her deal with things she does not want to trust herself to deal with. I'm halfway through and I am loving it.
Right. Well, another thing that's fun about it is you have an older character and a younger character who meet, and they don't really trust each other, but they have to learn kind of how to work together in order to, it's a fascinating book. It's different. I love that it's unique. And I was always immediately very excited about it. So
thanks.
This has been so fun, you guys. Elizabeth said, let's see, what'd you say? All of these books sound good, even though I'm not a true fantasy fan. And I think that's the thing, Elizabeth, is you don't need to be a true fantasy fan for these books because it's kind of magical realism. I stray away from that magical realism label for things a little bit, but there's still women's fiction, family drama, character-driven arcs, but there are just some elements of magic that we've chosen to we've woven in. I can't talk anymore.
I think a lot of people like you said earlier, a lot of Southern women, but I think a lot of people in general believe more in a bit of magic than they talk about every day. So I think when they see it woven well into a story, it doesn't seem far-fetched. It's not like, you know, lightsabers and stuff. It's just it's that serendipity that
Yeah.
I think every single person on the planet has experienced it sometime or another, when everything aligns and you're just like, what just happened? And I think it's just an expansion on that. And I think kind of people are at a point in their psyches right now where that's very welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most people I know, and now I'm in the North, but just in talking to women, they talk about signs that they see, and they talk just so comfortably about it. It's not even a big deal. It's just the way people see life. And Kim, I was just hearing what you said. I have a friend who was given a bench, and it was this little bench, and suddenly everything started to go wrong. Like really terrible things would happen. And they moved the bench, and you know, it was each thing that happened was getting worse and worse. And finally she had to give it away. And then terrible things happened to the person she gave it to.
Oh.
You know, it was,
Yeah.
and she's not a
Sewing machine.
kind of person, but she was like, that bench.
Bench in the woods.
Yeah.
Well, kind of, okay, Stephen King, Christine, right? I don't know if you guys know this. I don't really read Stephen King, and I saw the movie by accident when I was a nurse, and it was on people's TVs on a night shift one night. It's about a car that's like has a life of its own and goes around killing people. It's really freaky. So anyway, I don't know where I was going with that. Anyways, we're all writing stories that are somewhat uplifting in the end or along the way, I believe, and women growing and discovering their true self. We're about out of time. We've been at this. This hour has gone by really fast. I want to hang out with you all like every week for dinner or coffee or drinks or something. This is awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. And those of you who are listening now or who watch this later, thanks so much. Betty has one last comment here. Let's get this. Betty says, wasn't a fantasy fan till I got hooked on a cozy paranormal series. The female protagonist is snarky and vulnerable. Bit by bit, she realizes she has some powers. Yeah, that's fun stuff.
Which really is what women's fiction is. It's women realizing that they have some powers. They may not be able to levitate the Pentagon, but they have some powers, and by the end of the book they figure out what they are.
Mirrors.
That's why I love
the magic. Absolutely does mirror the themes of women's fiction. I think that's why magic works so well in women's fiction, because it mirrors it. It really does mirror it.
It really does.
Marries well.
Yeah. This
Well,
is so much fun.
It was. Thank you all so much for coming. Best of luck with all the books. You know, I'm cyber stalking all of you. You know that. So we're all good. Thanks, listeners, readers, for being here with us. And everybody have a great evening. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.